Richard, so, and I asked that question earlier, if the NPP knew beforehand that it could win some NDC people to its side, why did it have to go through all of this, delay the process, until we had to go through all of this marathon, 12 hours?
Well, thank you, Samson, and good morning to Felix. So I think parliamentary democracy is messy. Democracy itself is messy. Ours is a very difficult one, especially from what you said. We have a hung parliament. If you believe that, parties would hold on to their principles and ensure that they advance or exercise their oversight responsibility in ways that inure to the benefit of the country. If you make that assumption, then I am looking differently at the outcome of that election to approve the ministers yesterday, differently from what Felix is saying. I think Felix is angry about the outcome, but it shouldn't be. Democracy in its fullness was manifested yesterday, where people, in my view, voted their conscience. Now, the NDC and Felix can think that, it's a betrayal, but is it also the case that the people thought that it was wrong? That in spite of all the interventions and the proposals government is made to cut expenditure, which is carried most of it in the budget before Parliament, to say we are doing this and that to cut expenditure. Then the one fixation of the NDC, which for me is political. It is patronizing to the people of Ghana to say that we want you to cut the size of government, else you are not doing anything to control expenditure. It's not just not true. The debate in Parliament you heard, they were saying to you that, look, these MPs, they earn their salary as MPs. When they go, and the vast majority of President Akufo-Addo's appointees are on their parliamentary salaries. So it's inherently, you have, it is one time where the provisions of Article 78 make sense to me, to say that majority of the ministers must come from Parliament. So therefore, you have a number of people who already are earning their salary.
Are you saying that MPs who are ministers are not better off in conditions of service than MPs who are not ministers?
Relatively, because you heard from them that they themselves saying that we're already making our living with our parliamentary income, right? So,
but that's not correct.
But that they chose to do that, which is also a way of saving the state, right? So the government is made a litany of proposals.
No, when I say that's not correct, I'm saying factually, is that the situation? In reality, there are conditions that are attached to being a minister, and they are enjoying all these conditions. Right. And the salaries too, is it true that they are taking only MP salary without more?
Yes, I've heard ministers, I think the Labour minister, spoke to that following some interactions to say that that's what he's chosen to do. And a number of them have spoken.
That's what he has
chosen to do. And I'm saying that across the board, most of them are doing that. But you see, what is of substance, something is that there are rafts of revenue control measures that government has introduced. But the NDC somehow carries on this disinformation to say that the country wants the size of government cut. From the first term to now, you will agree with me that the size of government tremendously has been reduced. This is the one time in our history where you don't have deputy regional ministers. For the first time, you have that. So there's significant concessions made in that direction. But you see, we shouldn't overlook the fact that there's a mandate given the president. He needs a team to do it. Sometimes you are seated here. You have a producer, an assistant producer, and below that are people. You need a full complement of that team to support you on air to make sure this thing is running the way it ought to be. If anybody comes to say that, okay, well, we are cutting our budget here at multimedia, and so therefore you are entitled to only one producer, perhaps you can make do, but it will make your work difficult. If you don't deliver, you cannot go back and say because you cut the budget, they will just tell you, deal with what we have given you. But see, the business of running a state is almost like flying a plane. You don't want to make a mistake up there in the air. When you make mistakes by that, people die by the time you get to explain yourself, and
People
you will not be available.
People asked what the result was
Yeah.
for 126 ministers. People have asked that question.
Oh, yes, and I think that's something we can interrogate. But if you look at elections being a measure of performance, then in 2020, the verdict is clear that people were satisfied with the production of the government in the first term. And we can compare, and you said we're going to talk about the economy. So we'll look at the numbers. You see, there's this disinformation by the NDC, which I think that today, if you give us time, we'll explore to see that they are just interested in creating a certain impression in the minds of people, factual or not, to say that we want people to say that cut the size of government. But that is not the only thing. There are a lot of things that government is doing. So the outcome of yesterday's vote, I see it to be a victory for demorocracy. If I were the NDC, I don't think that they would want to go.
So this is a clear sign to you that the three financial bills that the government is, which is also some precondition for the IMF bailout. And we are told that in total, collectively, they are supposed to give us 4 billion?
4 billion or so, yeah.
Annually,
yeah,
to sort of get this economy back. It's a done deal. Your numbers will make sure it happens. When it comes to the CI, the controversial CI, that one too, it will happen.
yeah.
If the NDC is saying anything, we should just, as it were, brand them as simply making noise outside.
No, I wouldn't say so. I'm saying that there are NDC people. Of course, whipping, in Parliament is a real thing. It's part of parliamentary processes. But I'm saying that to a very large extent, you will see a coming together of people who understand that we have a stake in the running of the state to say, if there's a responsibility we have to ensure that governance carries on, as Parliament, we must do our bit. Yes, they can choose to say we're not going to vote for it, but it will come again. It will come again. At a certain point, you have to think about it and say, well, what is my interest? Is it for my party to look good or for my country to look good? And that's where the break would happen. Okay. I think that if you look at what the NDC, they are crying about this morning, that our people went and joined and all of that, you can decide not to approve them on one count, but the vote will come again. And at some point, you'll be seen as the person obstructing. Because what I saw yesterday was people saying that, look, enough. You have a president who has the mandate, and he is doing what he must do. You disagree with it, that's fine. But you don't tie his hand behind his back and say that you will not give him the team that he needs to be able to do the work that he's brought to do. So please, it wasn't a bad day for democracy. I heard Dr. Tiahine earlier who was talking about a sad day for democracy. It's not. I'm beginning to cringe when I hear people, because people voted their conscience, they are trying to make it appear as if, the NDC must vote against them in order to have that, we have a functioning democracy. It's not true.
Thank you.
I think we should desist from that conversation.
So, Professor Bath.